I recently found out who my daughter's father is, and I don't know how to feel. I've known my husband, 27, since I was 8. When he moved in across the street, he was like an older brother to my twin brother and me, because we had no other siblings. My dad was gone a lot because he was a lineman. The only person I really had was my mom. I was kinda rebellious as a teen, and I'd sneak out all the time. At the time, I had never had a boyfriend, because everybody was afraid of my brother. When I was 15, I snuck out and went to a party. I don't remember what happened that night, but I woke up in the back seat of my car covered in a blanket, and my jacket over my head. I was hurting and confused. But I continued with life, regularly. A few months after, I went to the school nurse, because I wasn't feeling well, and she gave me a pregnancy test. And I told her it was impossible because I didn't even have a boyfriend. The test was positive, and I cried because I didn't remember ever doing anything like that. They called my mom, and the nurse told me to tell my mom, because she felt like she shouldn't be the one to tell her. I told my mom I was pregnant, but I've never done anything to have a baby. My mom took me to a doctor, and they told her I was too far along to abort. They told me how far I was along, and I told my mom about how I woke up in the backseat of my car that day. I had my daughter a few months later, and she looked exactly like me. My green flu eye color, my blonde curly hair, and she even had my full lips. My now husband started to come over more after my daughter was born. He was so good with her, I started to see him as more than a friend. He bought her clothes, shoes, and toys, and he made sure she had everything she needed, even though he was a college student. When my daughter was around 3, we started to date. We dated for like 6 months before he asked me to marry him at his graduation party. We got married 4 months after that, and I got pregnant with our first son soon after. Everything was so perfect, but as my daughter grew, I noticed how much she started looking more like my husband. He always says she's his daughter, not stepdaughter, and he'd get mad if somebody tried to correct him. I thought it was sweet that he was protecting her from not knowing who her father was. I recently did a DNA test to see if my gut was right. It turns out my husband is my daughter's father. I don't know what to do. I don't even know what happened. If I ask him if he remembers, how he will react. He has always been so loving and caring. He told me I was his dream girl and he'd give me the entire world if he could. It's been a week since I got the results, and I haven't said anything. My life is so perfect that I don't even want to ask about it. Edit. I told him the father didn't want to be in her life, and he left it at that. My mom told me to tell people that so it doesn't seem like I was sleeping around. We didn't have sex while we were dating. His family is really religious, so he told me he saved himself for marriage, and he didn't believe in giving his body to someone he didn't love. His mom was against us getting married, because I had a child. But she eventually came around. That time I woke up in my backseat wasn't the first time, but I stopped going to parties after that time. I woke up sore. I called him a minute ago and asked him why he'd insist on telling people he's my daughter's father, and he told me that he has been there since she was a baby. Even if her father decided to come back in her life, she will still be his daughter. She'll still be his daughter. He's already off work and headed home. Edit 2. My husband just turned 27 last month. So he's 2.5 years older than me, so he was like 17 when this happened in the fall. Update. We sat down and talked. I asked him if he remembered the last party I went to in high school, and he said not really. He said he remembers waking up on the bathroom floor of his friend's guest room, and I was in the bed, and when he tried to wake me up, I told him to leave me alone. He said he didn't want to leave me in some random friend's house, so he carried me home. I asked him if he remembered what I was wearing, and what he was wearing. He said he thinks I was wearing a dress or something. He asked why I was asking all these questions. I told him that I was trying to figure out something, and this will help me. And he said okay. I asked again what he was wearing. He said he vaguely remembers asking his friend for some pants, because he had thrown up on his. I asked if he knew who the father of my daughter was. He said no. I guess the guy who got you to stop partying, and I said there was no guy. I stopped because I was kinda scared after I didn't remember that night, and he said a lot of people at that party didn't remember after, and he was one of them. I told him I didn't remember who my daughter's father is, and it happened at that party. He seemed surprised, and he hugged me because I looked like I was going to cry. He offered to take a paternity test, and that he's pretty sure that he's not my daughter's biological father, so he's scheduling one tomorrow. Mirn. Update. This is my last update. After my husband got the results that he was the father, he broke down and explained how he found me and how bad he felt for not protecting me. He told me how he cleaned me up and took me home. He knew in his heart he couldn't have done that to me. He asked me about the party afterwards, But I didn't remember, and neither did he, so he thought he was protecting me by not telling me. After that I didn't go out much, and there was a rumor about me having a boyfriend. When he saw I was pregnant, he didn't feel it was his place to ask questions about who the father was. He inferred that it was the rumored boyfriend. After I had my daughter, he noticed I was struggling and offered help. I told him what my mom told me to tell people about my daughter's father. He said at first it was to help as a childhood friend, but he started doing more after he started seeing me as more than a friend. He knew if we started a relationship he would take in my daughter as his. I showed him my post, and he understood why everyone was telling me to leave, and that he truly didn't remember doing that to me. He felt horrible, and told me he wished he knew so he could have done more. He told me how his stomach sunk when he saw the results and how much guilt washed over him. He told me I had full power over this, and he had no right to object. I asked him to stay with someone for a while so I could sort my thoughts. He stayed with his parents for a few days and called me daily to make sure we were okay. I recently found out I was pregnant. We decided to go to couples therapy and individual therapy. We have more than 2 kids. I feel like putting the specific number will be too many details, and someone might be able to tell who we are. We are planning to stay together. I'm still in love with him, and this hasn't changed that. We are going to see if his name can go on our daughter's birth certificate. We will tell our family the details soon. I feel like my brother will react like everyone here did. Mostly because he was against us getting married, and even though they were best friends, he completely cut communications with him when we started dating. I know this wasn't the update a lot of people were hoping for, but I'm going to do what makes me happy. I'm aware I probably shouldn't have posted this. At the time I wanted to vent, and this seemed like a convenient place to do that. Thank you everyone for your concern.